Hello guys, today we'll be covering a 1999 science fiction comedy film called My Favorite Martian. As the film begins, we see a rover on a mission to collect data on Martian rocks. The signal is lost just as it's about to sample a new rock. The transmission is terminated, and the 5-year mission comes to an end with data on over a dozen rocks. The mission controllers congratulate themselves on a successful mission, while an undiscovered Martian city is revealed to us. Right then, a spaceship is seen flying into space. The next thing we know, we're on Earth, Santa Barbara, California. Tim O'Hara works as a news producer at KGSC. Mr. Channing is his boss, who does not have much faith in him. He assigns great stories to Tim's colleagues, while giving him just a filler story. Tim convinces Mr. Channing to let him take up the Vandenberg story. The boss agrees on the condition that Tim will be fired if he ruins the story. Grace Channing, the boss's daughter, is the reporter who works with Tim on the project. They report live from the Vandenberg Air Force Base, where the shuttle Atlantis is launching. Grace speaks with Captain Dalton about the project that will study the Fiona comet. At the end of the show, Tim unintentionally compromises Brace by making an unnecessary remark that she unknowingly repeats after him. Brace is upset with Tim for making her look like an idiot on TV, and she complains to her father about it. As a result, Tim is fired. Later, Lizzie, the camera operator, and his friend try to comfort him. Next, Tim witnesses a Martian spacecraft crash landing. Later that night, as he drives back home, he stops the car in the middle of the road and Brace nearly crashes into his car. He takes Brace to show the crashed ship, but the Martian alien, the owner of the ship, notices them and shrinks the ship to the size of a toy and hides behind a rock. Tim searches for the ship. While Brace sits and smokes, she tosses the cigarette behind her, striking the alien in the face. He throws the cigarette on the ground and spits on it. Meanwhile, Tim discovers the shrunken ship and brings it home with him by chewing on a Nurplex, an alien gum that transforms one into different life forms. The Martian transforms into a human form. Then he gets into the trunk of Tim's car so that he can retrieve his ship. Later, back at home, Mrs. Brown gives Tim some brownies. While he's eating them, the alien breaks into the house. He tries to steal the ship while remaining invisible, but Tim manages to hit him in the head. The Martian is knocked out. Tim pokes him with a stick to wake him up, but he has to fight Zoot, the Martian's talking and moving suit. Tim ends up destroying his belongings in the room during the fight. While he ponders whether it's real or just an illusion, the alien strikes him in the back of the head, knocking him out. The Martian and Zoot argue about who's to blame for them ending up at Tim's house. There's a knock on the door. While they're at it, Lizzie shows up at the door, and the Martian is at a loss for what to do. Zoot then suggests transforming into Tim, which she follows immediately and greets Lizzie. She finds his manner of talking funny and unusual and asks if he's okay. The fake Tim tries hard to act like the real one, but ends up kissing Lizzie weirdly and asks her to leave right away. Lizzie is dumbfounded by the unexpected kissing, but she's also happy because she has a crush on Tim. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, on the other hand, is looking for evidence at the UFO crash site. When they discover the cigarette with mucus on it, Coley orders that it be analyzed and dusted to find out who it belongs to. They find the footprints and assume that the alien must have taken the human form. Coley claims that the situation is similar to an incident from 1964, but is stopped by Armiton, who reminds them that the previous event never took place. The next morning, Tim finds himself up on the ceiling and asks the Martian to put him down as he tries to comprehend the situation. The alien expands his spaceship and tries to fix it. He finds out that the electronic accelerator has been damaged and is beyond repair. Tim thinks he's dreaming and tells himself to wake up over and over again. When he realizes everything's real, he uses Mrs. Brown as an eyewitness. However, the Martian has already shrunk the ship again and introduces himself as Uncle Martin to Mrs. Brown. Tim then offers to help the aliens to take them to the market to find necessary items for the ship's repair. Martin and Zoot are frustrated seeing humans with low IQ. Tim then tries to persuade them that Earth isn't as bad as they think. Martin reveals that Ninert, a Martian scientist, had come to Earth and disappeared. Meanwhile, people make fun of Martin's outfit, and he gets upset about it, so Tim takes some shopping. Now Zoot is the one upset as Martin replaces them with earthly outfits while they bicker in the changing room. Tim tries to record a video because the Martian can be a great story that might help him to get his job back. Next, upset Zoot gets the Nurplex all over the place. A kid tries to eat one of the gums, but Martin scares him away. When confronted about it, Martin makes Tim try one. He turns into an alien when he eats the gum and returns to human form. As soon as he spits it out, Martin then describes the various gums and warns him not to take the Venox 7 ever. Meanwhile, Brace is furious at Felix, another news producer, for not pronouncing the word preconceptions properly and making her look like a fool on TV for the second time. Tim visits the reporting site with Martin. Martin recognizes Lizzie from the other night and gets excited, but he cannot reveal the truth to her. In the middle of the conversation, his stomach growls, so Tim takes him to the ice cream place. He refuses to eat at first, but later causes havoc by devouring all of the ice creams. Monstrously soon, Tim helps Felix with his scripts, while Brace is captured by the SETI gang for interrogation. Martin is also being watched, but he's completely unaware of it. Tim secretly tapes Martin and Zoot once again. He also captures Martin in his real form while he's taking a bath. On the other hand, Coley is interrogating Grace. Upon finding that she's not an alien, he sets her free. Brace proposes that they work together to prove the alien's existence, and Coley agrees to it despite having all the evidence taped. Tim decides not to reveal them as he's grown fond of the Martian. In the meantime, Martin and Ju discover an interstellar safety system, or IS, in the ship that's about to self-destruct before 9 o'clock. Realizing that there's no way for him to fix the ship, Martin falls into a Martian depression and his body parts begin to fall apart one by one. As a result, soon Brace shows up uninvited at Tim's apartment. In the middle of the breakdown, she steals the videotapes containing the evidence and runs away. Lizzie goes to see Tim after he calls her and asks her to meet him, but she instead finds Brace stealing the tape. Lizzie, thinking Tim cheated on her, storms out of the room, but not before informing Tim that Brace has taken all of the tapes. As she's leaving, heartbroken Lizzie hears Zoot talking to himself while trying to repair the ship. She gets closer and looks down. She screams when she sees a talking suit and gets pulled down into the ship by Zoot. In a hurry, Martin and Tim shrink the ship along with Lizzie and Zoot inside it and leave to pursue the stolen tapes. At the TV station, Tim confesses videotaping Martin and apologizes. Martin accepts the apology and agrees to Tim's plan to prevent the tapes from airing. He transforms into Brace and goes live on TV, where he almost exposes his true self because of the gum. Meanwhile, Tim replaces the tapes and escapes the station with Martin. When they return home, they discover that the ship has disappeared. They follow Mrs. Brown, assuming she's taken the ship to a rummage sale. They are, however, pursued by the SETI team. They use Martin's device to shrink Tim's car and drive through the sewers. There, they find Mrs. Brown and take the ship from her, but they're eventually captured by Coley and taken to his lab for investigation. In the lab, Tim tricks one of the scientists into expanding the ship, allowing Lizzie and Zoot to become free. Lizzie then frees Tim, and together they try to find Martin, but security guards stop them during the fight. Zoot gets shot twice and Tim is severely beaten. Seeing this, Lizzie eats Venox 7. She then transforms into a monster. She goes on and kills the guards, spits out the Nurplex, and turns back into a human. Meanwhile, Martin has been forced to undergo surgery to have his antennae removed. He appears to be dead, and Coley attempts an autopsy but is stopped by Lizzie and Tim. Martin awakens when Zoot reunites with them, and he heals automatically. After that, they flee the SETI headquarters. Later, Martin replaces the electron accelerator with a car alternator and fixes the ship as Tim and Lizzie are about to bid farewell to Martin. Coley arrives and tries to kill him as he's proof of the alien's existence. However, Armiton stops Coley by destroying the gun. He reveals himself to be none other than Ninert, the Martian scientist who disappeared in 1964. Together, they fly back to Mars. Coley then finds a piece of Nurplex and chews on it. and turns into a Martian. Unfortunately, he swallows the gum, transforming into an alien permanently, and gets caught by his own organization, whereas Tim and Lizzie manage to successfully flee the scene. In the end, Martin and Zoot decide to stay on Earth with Tim and Lizzie, while Neenert flies back home. Tim is hesitant at first to allow the Martian to live with them, but finally changes his mind because of Lizzie. The film ends with Zoot enjoying his bath in the washing machine.